family lives under a bridge, lost everything they owned. Now empty cardboard boxes are what they're calling home. This is where Jesus would go. There's a white-haired widowed lady laying in intensive care. No one goes to see her when she needs some love and prayer. This is where Jesus would go. This is where Jesus would go.
When we don't walk in the most excellent way. Some of us may understand considerably more about this than others. Some of us have probably not even stopped to really contemplate this. But what happens when we don't walk in the most excellent way, when we don't walk in this way of love, when we don't walk in this way of exemplifying Christ? What happens when love is not expressed? I'm going to talk to those of us who claim to be Christians. And I'm going to ask you today, in this time, are you a Christian or are you Christ follower? Are you a Christian or are you a Christ follower? Some of you will say, Mickey, what's the difference? I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian all my life. I've been raised in church. I go to church. Some of you may say, well, you know, I used to be a heathen. Now I'm a Christian. But I'm asking, are you a Christ follower? I began to really think about this one day. I was riding down the road with my mother in my truck. I love my mother. As a side note, you women out there, if you're looking for a man and he does not love his mother and treat his mother with respect, stay far away from him. If he has a mother that is not a very nice person, and yet he cannot treat her with respect, stay away from him. Because if he can't love his mother, he's not going to love you. But that's a side road. I was driving down a road in my truck with my mother in a truck, and we were talking a little bit about some things that were going on in the world. And she was really upset of all the heinous crimes that are done in the name of religion. And I don't remember the details of the conversation, except that the gist of it was that so many of the crimes throughout history have been propagated by Christians. And I said, they are not Christians. Right now there's violence going on in places of the world by people who claim to be Christians, yet not a single aspect of their conduct is Christ-like. There are crimes and heinous things being committed right here in our own backyard by people who claim to be Christians, yet they are not Christ-like. There's a difference. Are you a Christ follower? Are you Christ-like? Or are you just a Christian? Because if you're just a Christian, that doesn't mean anything. In fact, in so many places of the world, it means you're bringing pain and suffering. Let me use an example here. An example from my own life. Many years ago, before I was a Christ follower, before I was a lover of Jesus, I don't know that I would have even said I was a Christian in those days. was newly married. My wife was pregnant. It was our first Christmas together. Oh, to be in love in the early days. Do you remember that? We had absolutely nothing. We had maybe on a good week $20 to buy groceries with. We lived in a shack in the middle of the woods with a lantern for light. We had a handful of books. We had 2 chaise lounges for furniture. We had a wood stove that had to be reassembled. And we had a homemade bed. We took a futon mattress and I cut some cedar logs and used some rope and strapping, and we made a homemade bed. And before that, it was just a mattress on the floor. We had a homemade quilt, but we were in love. And we were expecting our first child. We were in town at the dollar store right here in Rogersville. And we were shopping for some food because that's where we did our grocery shopping, at the dollar store. Nothing like ramen noodles and Spam and Vienna sausages. It was very close to Christmas. In fact, I think it was about 2 weeks away from Christmas. And my heart was broken. I was standing outside about to smoke a cigarette. My wife was in there wrapping up the shopping, and she had wanted a Christmas tree. They had those $10 trees and those $20 trees, and she wanted a Christmas tree. And I said, "Well, honey, we really don't have the money for that this week, but maybe next week when I get paid, we can buy a tree." Maybe were my words. In my heart, it was, I don't know what I'm going to do, but if I can buy some time, maybe I can figure something out. I don't have a clue how we're going to get a tree. My heart was broken. You see, on the outside, I was a man. I could hold my own in a fight. I wouldn't back down. I could look you in the eyes. I would stand toe-to-toe with anybody. I was a man. But on the inside, I was broken. I was less than a man. I couldn't provide for my family. I couldn't get the things that my wife needed. You see, the security of a home wasn't important to me. The security of food wasn't important to me. I always survived. I was a survivor. I could always take pride in that. I could survive. But for a woman, it's important to have a home. It's important to have a certain amount of security. She finds comfort and strength in that. And a man finds definition in being able to provide that for her. And I couldn't. So when I looked in the mirror, I saw a loser. And when I looked around at all these Christians, because we lived in the heartland of Bible country, I saw people who called me loser. But not one of them would stand toe-to-toe with me. You see, for my wife and I both, and many other people, before I was a Christ follower, a lover of Jesus, I had no value and no worth in my life. I had already destroyed half my life, and there was no takebacks. And the world around me saw no value in me. And for my wife, the world around her saw no real value in her. She was only as valuable as her looks, and when those faded, she would have no value. But we were in love, and we were doing the best we could. And as I stood on that sidewalk and I smoked a cigarette, a man came up, at least I think it was a man, it may have even been a woman, but I'm pretty sure it was a man. Came up and quickly put a piece of paper in my hand and ran away. And I can't say he ran as if he was terrified of me, but he didn't stay and he didn't linger, and I don't even remember us making eye contact. He was rather nervous. And I opened that piece of paper, and on it was written in pencil, and I still have this note, a torn piece of notebook paper that said, "God told me to give you this," and in it was a $20 bill. I went in and I bought a Christmas tree, the $20 one, not the $10 one. No, I bought the $20 one. And my wife and I went home and we cooked some popcorn and we strung it on some thread and we took some aluminum foil and made bows and we took some red ribbon and tied around the bows and we decorated our $20 Christmas tree. That some stranger came up with a handwritten note and a $20 bill and said that his God told him to give us this.
There's a broken-hearted father suffered his greatest loss as he watched his only son die on an old rugged cross. This is where Jesus would go. This is where Jesus would go.